the governor of Colorado with federal funds bragging and saying incinerators, ovens, and mass graves were good. I come out and say, no, look at who has a history of releasing bioweapons. It's probably going to be the government. They've done this over and over again in chemical, biological, radiological testing on the American, British people, and others. And then they had a forced inoculation program where they were training the police for forced inoculations. They had to suspend that in 2003 because the police refused to take the injections themselves. And so the LA Times said, oh, how terrible, the police and firefighters and emergency workers won't take their vaccines. They don't trust the government. And I took the LA Times and said, no, this isn't horrible. They're smart just like the general public is, and they smell a big, fat, gigantic, stinking rat when Health and Human Services Secretary Tommy Thompson wouldn't take the injection himself. So I take their news saying, oh, isn't it great? We're going to ban your rifles in America. And I go, no, this article's not good, and this isn't great. So to say, oh, Alex, look at you using mainstream media. I thought they were lying. That's an oversimplification of what I'm saying and what I'm doing. And the establishment's worried because people are waking up across the board, and even CNN and everybody else are having to admit world government is being set up.
Okay, let's stay there, Stephen. Let's bring in James, who's in Ireland. James, hello, sir.
Hello, Alex. With all the money being printed in the United States and Britain, this surely will lead to hyperinflation and making the sterling and the dollar worthless and incurring high unemployment rate. This could lead to mass protests on the streets and political instability and the imposition of martial law.
Yes.
And the emergency internment, that is imprisonment without trial, of what the governments in both respective countries consider political dissidents. What's your take on that, Alex?
Well, the IMF and World Bank brag in documents released by the BBC in early 2002 that they like destroying the economy. That's only phase one. Then when riots break out, when folks are starving, they then get to crack down even more. That destroys confidence even further. Then the IMF and World Bank can come in as the saviors, loaning people their own money back at interest, at 30% interest. So absolutely, what you're saying is true, but we're not going to have hyperinflation too bad until about a year and a half, the next 18 months.
I was thinking that. You could be talking about 2-3 years maybe down the line, yeah.
Well, let me tell folks why. This is monetary inflation at the highest levels. They're already issuing the new global currency. You just don't see it in your own money because the banks are hoarding all the bailout money. That's for them to buy up roads, infrastructure, ports, buy off politicians. So only the politicians, see that money in payoffs. That is bank-to-bank lending, which is just ones and zeros on bank ballot sheets. In the United States, I don't know the exact number in England, but I know it's similar. There's less than 1% physical dollar cash in the economy compared to all the bank ledgers. So when you hear hyperinflation, it's not going to be as bad as some think. People are like, well, $12.8 trillion in the U.S. printed? No. They only printed a fraction of that for the slaves. That's all fiat, what you'd call digital money for the bankers. So, but they do plan, as the bankers buy things up, then as currency and credit, some of that money will go out, and then for those that do save, or pensioners or others, it will basically destroy you because of the cost of living going up.
Okay, let's bring in Steve in Watford on this point. Steve, hello.
Hi, good evening. I want to ask Alex, basically, that everybody has tried to control the world from Genghis Khan to Adolf Hitler to German Mao. Adolf Hitler tried an extermination policy, so we all know. But nobody has ever made it work. So how does Alex think this occasion that the governments are going to be so successful?
That's not true.
How do you mean?
Okay, well, in between France, Spain, the Dutch, and the UK, they perfected empires by stealth. And if you've read any of the British lords or history or the history books on it, on the Milner Group and others, the British model of mercantilism, globalism, to control nations through their central banks. We have a group of polycentric private banking institutions who brag. I mean, they write books bragging they've done this. I can list the books if you'd like. I mean, Gordon Brown gives speeches to the G20 bragging about it. They just don't put but little clips on your news. So if you'd like to go watch them on Google or YouTube, just watch the full speeches. And so this polycentric system is in place, and so you have, that's what globalism is, where you have these offshore banks that control the world's currencies through the UN, through the IMF, through the World Bank, through the Exim Bank, through the OECD, through the World Trade Organization, through NATO. They are setting up world government. That's why they're saying, we'll control what taxes you pay worldwide. That's the new powers they're calling for. So you have a world court, a world army, a world bank, all of this controlled by the private shareholders of those private banks. I mean, you're here denying what's openly being announced, okay? Just know that.
Well, I'm not intelligent enough to deny anything, because I'm not intelligent enough to fully understand it. But all I can say to you is, if we had globalization already in place, why do we have so many different languages? Why do we have so many different religions? Why do we still have so many different cultures? I mean, the British Empire supposedly ruled half the world. We actually didn't. We did a large amount of it for a local corporation, not necessarily for banking and finance.
Yeah, the British East India Company fronts the business model. That's what I was just telling you. The Boxer Rebellion, getting countries addicted to drugs,
well,
so you corrupt their police.
How is that then that the British Empire basically failed? Why do we not control India any further?
Didn't fail. It merged with the United States to become the Anglo-American Empire. Sir, the official CIA commission, True History of the Last 100 Years, was published in 1969. Only 1,000 copies were produced by Professor Carol Quigley, the head of political science at Georgetown, Bill Clinton's mentor. And it's the official CIA history, 900 and something pages. They got very mad. There were lawsuits over it, but then because the government funded it, they couldn't stop it from being reprinted. And so it's been republished. You can buy Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley, the official CIA True History, because they're bureaucrats, they're high-level diplomats, and others have to know how things actually work.
Okay, we're going to take a short pause, Alex. Stay with us. Thank you to Steve there in Watford. Call coming in from Mark. We got Fred, John, Keith, Brian, Kevin, and others. Don't go away. Alex Jones is with us. 08717 223344. Email talksport.net. You can text on 81089. You're listening to The Late Show with Ian Collins, Talksport.
The Late Show with Ian Collins on Talksport.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted.
That's Eisenhower, Alex Jones. Was he another president against the whole New World Order?
Well, no, he had been, basically for U.S.-British power, but then he found out that there was a plan to fully take over the United States, and his generals came to him right before he left office, and they said, we want to stage terror attacks inside the United States to really take people's rights, and he said no. They then proposed it to Kennedy, and he didn't just say no. He said, you're fired. That's declassified Operation Northwoods, plans to commit sniper attacks, how to frame patsies, hijack jets by remote control, fly them into things, how to carry out bombings all over the U.S., and they did later, of course, carry that out with the USS Liberty and other operations in the Gulf of Tonkin. LBJ was more than happy to do that. But just finishing up that last guy's question, sir, everything I'm telling you is on record. It is not my opinion. This is just stuff you never learned or never knew. And I'm not arrogantly here telling you you're stupid. I'm just telling you need to get informed.
Yeah, but is it your spin, though, Alex? Maybe the context that you add is perhaps what changes the fabric of the story.
No, I mean, listen, if you read the globalist documents, most of them public, they were never even classified, okay. so they don't need to be declassified. They openly explain how this is a group of private banks using a global system of rules and regulations and control of nations' currencies. And almost every country in the world, except a few, less than a dozen third world nations, has the same private banking families set up central banks that are privately owned in their countries. And so the private families that own the world government, they control the issuance of currency and credit.